No, very good morning to you. Any of you that are listening to us today that are family members right across the west coast of Ireland, if you're struggling with substance misuse or you have a family member, just give us your attention for the next couple of minutes if you don't mind. I'm joined in studio by Maria Power, who's Drug and Alcohol Family Support Coordinator with the Western Regional Drug and Alcohol Task Force, and by Detective Inspector indeed Brendan Carroll from An Garda Síochána, and they both join me today. Morning to both of you. Thanks for joining us today. I suppose I'll start with you, Brendan, first off. Is this a major problem out there?
Good morning, Keith. It is indeed. We're seeing more and more people that are getting into serious difficulty with alleged drug deaths and drug deaths because of drug use. And I suppose just to give you a background to it, drug-related intimidation basically occurs when a criminal or criminals target people who they say owes them money and possibly does owe them money, and they set about intimidating them or family members to provide that money for them.
And is it very common?
I would have to say from my experience to date, it's something that's getting more common.
Maria, can I bring you in there if you don't mind? From your point of view then, have you come across this?
Yes, I suppose as a drug and alcohol family support worker, we support family members who are impacted by substance misuse. So they can come to us for a variety of supports. Some might be just looking for information. Some might be looking for information on services for their loved one, treatment options. Some family members might want support for themselves around their coping strategies. And some of them do come looking for support around drug-related intimidation, where they have been targeted themselves to pay a debt for their loved one who is in active drug use.
And can I just ask in relation to, I mean, let's just kind of draw a line in it that somebody's taking drugs and they owe somebody money. Mm-hmm. Like, sorry, Inspector Carroll just said it there as well. It's on the up.
It is on the up. It's something that we hear lots about, from talking with families. It's something that sometimes family members might not come to us with that reason, but when we ask about it is something that's going on. So it's something that's really difficult for family members to talk about, or for people experiencing intimidation to talk about. There can be a lot of shame and stigma about it. There can be lots of fear. Like, people are really scared that something terrible is going to happen to somebody within their family if they don't pay, or if they don't carry out what the criminals are asking them to carry out.
And Inspector Carroll, can I go to you? I mean, this intimidation then, I mean, is it a threat that if you don't pay the debt, if it's the person themselves or their family members, is it very heavy-handed?
It is, Keith. I suppose initially it's the drug user, and it'll normally move on to the family member, and that's because I suppose the family member is possibly more vulnerable. In a lot of cases, we would have seen where there may be significant drug debt and a family member may have absolutely no idea what's going on until they receive a text or a phone call or a call to the house. There's a great problem for people who are, find themselves in this situation, in that they feel that by coming to the Gardaí or coming to Maria, that they're going to incriminate their loved one. And while it is accepted that the person may have drug issues, certainly it's not something we look at, that they're going to be incriminating themselves. We would encourage people to come forward. The one thing they can be assured of when they come forward to us is confidentiality. Again, as I said earlier, there's no pressure on people to make a complaint. Some people feel that they have to make a complaint in writing to the Gardaí. If they want the matter fully investigated to a conclusion where these people are going to be brought before the courts, and that is something we certainly will not be found wanting in. If a complaint is made to us, we will investigate it fully, and we will ensure that these people are brought to justice in relation to this horrible crime. But if it's a thing that people feel that they cannot make a complaint, or they don't wish to make a complaint, they will still be given the support, advice and confidentiality they require.
So when you say bringing this to court, you're talking about bringing the perpetrators of the threats and the abuse. You're talking about those that are demanding the money from the family member, or indeed the user themselves. You're talking about bringing them to court then?
That is correct, Keith. And there's a variety of ways in which this intimidation occurs. Damage to property, threats of damage to property, assault, and there now are a number of even new legislation we have in relation to harmful communications, where people are being sent images and communication, things like that. There's a number of different offences, harassment, that we can prosecute people under in relation to this intimidation.
It must be, and both of your mics are open, but it must be, Maria, it must be horrific for family members, not perhaps knowing that the person is taking drugs, but then they get the call looking for the money and frightens the absolute living daylights out of them. And then the concern for the family member.
Absolutely. And it can be really complex because the family member, I suppose, we all are within family systems and we hate the thoughts of anyone within our family being hurt. And I suppose, initially you think, I'll do whatever it takes to protect them. And if you have a son or a daughter coming to you saying, if I don't pay this money, then they're threatening to beat me up, or they could be threatening anything. The initial response is, I'll do what I need to do. However, sometimes by responding or by paying or by doing what is asked of them at that time, what often happens is this cycle begins. So the person demanding the money knows, okay, well, look, at this family can pay up. So they've paid, say, for example, €1,000. We'll hit them up again in a few weeks for €1,000 because we know that they can pay up. And it kind of keeps that cycle going. Or I suppose what has happened before, looking at people who get involved in say, taking the drug use and working up a drug debt, it could amount to, say, €2,000. And they could be told, okay, well, look, instead of paying €2,000, how about we cut it down to 1,000? And for, in exchange of that, you need to go to such a place and pick up a bag and hang on to that for a few days, and then we'll pick it up again. Like, kind of sounds like an easy task, and it can be quite tempting. And then that person gets caught with firearms or money or drugs, and they themselves get criminalised then for that. So it can be really difficult, in kind of steering, knowing the best thing to do in that situation when somebody is being intimidated. Do I pay? Do I get involved in criminal activity? And I suppose when you're stressed and when these things are happening within your family, it can be difficult to think logically about it.
Well, Sergeant Inspector Carroll, I'm still calling you Sergeant. I'll get into the inspector side shortly. But for the families in question that find themselves in this position, are there vast amounts of money involved? I mean, 1,000 or 2,000 is still a lot of money for a lot of people. Or where do they get the money from, or where does it try and get the money from?
Well, I suppose, Keith, when we talk about amounts of money, absolutely there are some significant amounts of money being sought by criminals intimidating people. But for somebody who has no money, a small amount of money can be a large amount of money.
An awful lot, yeah.
And clearly, those criminals involved in this activity, they will target people who they know will respond. And as Maria rightly said there, they will continue to pursue those who pay them. And again, I want to make it clear, we can't advise people not to pay. That is a decision to make themselves. Again, if they pay and have paid, it is no reason for them not to come forward to us. It's no reason. It doesn't mean that we can't conduct a prosecution down the line. That is of no relevance. But what I would say is people have been forced to sell property. People have been forced to go to credit unions. The activity of those people is extremely sinister. The pressure that is put on, in particular, relatives of drug users. And again, as Maria said, where there's an issue with regard to being the ability to pay, what they find happening is that the drug user or the family will be requested to hold drugs for a certain length of time, store drugs, deliver the drugs, and they now have found themselves in this cycle. And I suppose, to reiterate, that while they may pay a certain amount and then there'll be additional for failing to pay on time, you will not get out this debt, because if you're paying to those people, the debt never ends because you're useful to them.
Because they'll just keep coming back looking for more and more. They will keep coming back.
They will continue to come back.
So is it important that, and again, is it important that they go to the Garda Síochána or confide in the community guard or otherwise with a view to, first off, their own personal safety, and secondly, perhaps trying to get these people to go away.
Absolutely, Keith. And if they come to us, as I say, it'll be full confidentiality, and we will be in a position to advise them in relation to their own personal safety. We have a crime prevention officer who will visit them. We can meet them formally or informally, and we can also give them information in relation to the relevant services that their loved one who has a drug issue can go to and to Maria's people in relation to it.
And can I ask you just, maybe it's not a fair question, if you can't answer it, don't answer it, but the loved one in question that's causing this situation for the family in question, can they be protected, or are they subject to conviction as well?
Every case is looked on it, individually.
Yeah.
Certainly, if somebody is coming to us in relation to a level of any level of drug intimidation, and they're prepared to tell us that it is their loved one, we look at that in a very careful manner, and we make no decision. And certainly it isn't the case that any person who would come to us would end up being incriminated based on a complaint made to us in relation to drug intimidation.
That's very reassuring. Really is very reassuring for the families.
Well, at this moment, our concern is the welfare of the drug user, and in particular the family members who are being subjected to unbelievable torture arising out of this. And I've met numerous people, and I don't want to give specifics, but I've met numerous people during the course of my role as the liaison inspector in relation to this, and the way it has turned family lives upside down. And in particular, people who maybe at the outset had no knowledge that their loved one was involved in any drug use whatsoever. And as you know yourself, Keith, the generations have moved on, and drug use is much more prevalent now than it was. And there are drug users at every age right up in society, and within every profession in society. So it's an extreme problem. Some people don't see it as a big issue if they take the occasional cocaine, which seems to be the most preferred drug of choice. But the reality is that €50, that €100 makes its way right up to the cartels, the major drug dealers. That's what keeps them going, Keith, and that's why it's extremely important that we get on top of this situation. In the last period of time, we have increased our drug unit personnel throughout the county because we're very aware of the ongoing rise in drug-related activity. And as such, that's why we've seen a rise in the number of detections.
Which is good to see. Maria, just talking to you now, Maria Power, from the Drug and Alcohol Family Support Coordinator with the Western Regional Drugs and Alcohol Task Force. For those listening to us today that are saying, sweet God, that's me, what do they do?
I suppose just before that little bit, like we've spoken a little bit about, about the intimidation that can happen, but it can be something really simple as well. It might be kind of a stare as you're walking down the street, or someone parking outside a family home, to have that presence, and if they are having that realisation, it might not be threatening to burn my house down, but it's someone that has come to my door numerous times looking for somebody, that would still qualify as drug-related intimidation. And I suppose those families who have that realisation that this is happening within my family, that they can reach out for support, that there is a drug and alcohol family support worker in each county, in Galway, Mayo and Roscommon. They can contact our service, and we would be delighted to offer any support that we can to that family.
What's the best way of getting in contact with you? Yeah,
so they can call me on 087 6955 557, or they can contact me by email, either maria.powers@wrdatf.ie. There's also a webinar happening on the 21st of February. It's going to be online. You can register through our website, www.wrdatf.ie. And Brendan will be on that as well. We're really lucky to have Brendan and the other nominated inspectors within our region with their time. Anytime we do any information sharing or webinars like that, we would have a member of the Gardaí present to answer any questions similar to the information that he's provided you this morning.
Though, if somebody is listening this morning and they're in that space where they got the call, or they know the call has come in and or otherwise, they can ring on 087 69 55 55 7 or the WRDATF That's a mouthful now, so it is.
It is.
Even for me on a Monday morning, Tuesday morning. But again, further details, we will put this up online. We will leave it in reception. But if somebody is affected by our conversation today, you're not alone and there's help there.
Absolutely. Yeah,
That's
you
the
are
key.
not on your own. Often family members feel, I'm the only one going through this. Who can I talk to? I can't talk to anybody. Well, there are people out there that you can talk to.
And then Inspector Carroll, again, from a Garda point of view, if they make contact.
Ourselves, there is the Commissioner has appointed a detective inspector within each of the Garda divisions within the country who is the designated liaison inspector for drug intimidation. My number is 091 337 224. And outside of that, they can contact any Garda station and they'll be put confidentially through to myself, or as you said yourself, Community Garda or any Garda that's known to them. If they want to go to them in confidence, they'll get the message to me and we will take it from there.
I think most people would know a guard, a member of Garda Síochána. So if you're happier confiding in them, and they can get you to Brendan and to the relevant people from there. But don't sit on it. Let today be a kind of red letter day. The most important thing is from here, you're not alone.
You're not alone.
And you're not on your own either, because there's a lot of people, like-minded people there. Thank you both for joining us today. Maria Power, thank you for joining us. And Inspector Carroll, thank you indeed for joining us. Detective Inspector Brendan Carroll, thank you indeed for joining us today.